Hello, everyone, and welcome to another solo episode of Friends Occasionally Not Disagreeing. This is the Fond Pod, the Fond Cast. It's Cody, and I'm here with another installment of my 60th anniversary James Bond series watch along. I was unable to get an episode up last week because life is super busy right now, and as I get closer to Halloween, it just is probably going to get busier. Matter of fact, you'll see this episode is dropping on Friday, and I barely got this one in as is. But I have another one here for you. We're going to check out the first outing by Mr. Timothy Dalton today. This is The Living Daylights. And it was interesting because I hadn't seen Timothy Dalton actually perform as Bond before. So what did I think of him and what did I think of this film? He doesn't have the reputation as being the best Bond, but did I have a different opinion? Let's find out as we get into it here with another episode of Classic or Crap, James Bond's 60th Anniversary Edition. All right, so we're talking about The Living Daylights. This came out in 1987. And again, this is the first of two James Bond films starring Timothy Dalton, the other being License to Kill, which we'll check out here as soon as we can get to that one coming up. Let's start off with our title and theme, as I typically do here with these. And I'm going to start with a theme first on this one, and I'll tell you why. I was extremely excited because I love the band Aha. I believe they're Norwegian, if I'm not mistaken. I definitely know they're from Scandinavia. I think they're Norwegian. I'm almost positive. And they just have this super cool 80s synth sound that have, kind of a wonderful lulling effect with the lead singer's voice as well. His name escapes me at this exact second, so apologies there. But I was really looking forward to hearing their song in this movie. And, it's definitely a song I've heard before of theirs because I'm a fan of their music. But listening to this as the movie came on, I have to say I'm scoring this lower than I thought I was going to, which is unfortunate. But I thought the song was good. I just, again, don't know if it truly fit like a Bond theme. And so I gave this a 8 out of 10. I thought I did a good job of kind of capturing like the mid to late 80s feel, but maybe again wasn't the best Bond theme. And so 8 out of 10 for this one from my boys. Aha. Onto our title, The Living Daylights. I'll be honest, I don't really get what this is referencing here. Maybe that's me being thick. I'm not sure. I kind of Googled a little bit the phrase itself. The only real reference I can find I never connected this really before, but if you ever heard somebody be like, I'm going to beat the living daylights out of him. I guess that's kind of what they're going for here. I'm still not exactly sure what even that phrase means. I guess you're gonna like knock him unconscious. I don't know. I'm not sure what that means, but it's a weird title. It's a weird title for a film as well. I don't fully know that it's referencing anything here in the plot. I should mention when I'm talking about this one and also the plot, it took me close to 2 weeks to get through this. I mean, I off and on watched this film over about 4 or 5 sessions, which is more than I have been watching these over. And it's a longer period of time, so forgive me if I am not quite as crisp on this one as I was some of the others. Certainly, having done that once, I want to make sure this is something I don't try to do again because it was hard to judge and evaluate this one fairly, I think, based on the viewing schedule I had for this. So, title for this one, again, I just don't get it. So, 2 out of 5. Just purely because it kind of sounds cool, but I don't really get what this is referencing. So there's that. If you're somebody who understands this title better than me and you want to knock the living daylights out of me, feel free to let me know on some of our social media how stupid I am, I guess. Okay, so let's go on to the performances in this one. And I'm going to mix it up into the villains first here to kind of keep us in suspense over Timothy Dalton. Villains in this movie, we did have several. We had Whitaker and Koskov, who kind of gets into the plot a bit here, but we kind of have this twisty turny KGB, Russian, American, international agency type thing going on where, it's not entirely clear who the villains are in this film, which is one of the better parts of the film plot, I will say. But essentially here, the Whitaker and Koskov, the two like leaders in this, are not really fantastic. They're not really that memorable. One has like an obsession with war and has this weird collection of like battlefield dioramas and almost like wax museum type presentations of some of history's greatest butchers. Bond says at one point, and he corrects them and says history's greatest surgeons because they cut out, like the dead parts of society or whatever you want to say. Overall, they're not too great, though. Now, there is a henchman here called Necros, who is in many ways, primary antagonist for Bond in this film. He's kind of another one of these super deadly, very silent style characters, and that character was probably more memorable than these other ones. Plus, he also had kind of like this tough guy androgyny to him, which was a different take, I felt like. Also somehow seemingly spoke of 80s as well. So Necros was a little bit cooler. But in general, we are not working with anything spectacular here. This really rates among the bottom rung of villains. So I'm going to do a 6 out of 10 as far as the villains go in this movie. As far as the Bond lady here, we have Kara, who is not given a ton to do with performance wise, but I will say is sometimes I do throw a couple bonus points on just based on how they cast these people. This is an actress named Miriam D'Abo, D apostrophe ABO, that I was not familiar with, but she is very attractive and also has kind of like this adorable little whimper that she does, like a soft moan throughout the movie. And that was doing it for me, I gotta say. So she's pretty good to look at, pretty good eye candy here. But as far as, a worthy Bond lady, a worthy companion to Bond or counterpart to Bond, not to be found in this one. And it is surely due to her physical looks on this that she's going to get a 10 out of 15, which is, about middle of the road here again for our ladies through these movies so far. All right, now let's get to the one that I was the most curious about, Timothy Dalton as James Bond. So he is our fourth proper Bond at this point, with Sean Connery, and then we had the George Lazenby, and then we had Roger Moore, and then of course we had Connery back for the one film that was non-canon, and then we also had the many people who played a form of Bond in the original Casino Royale, the off spin on this one from the main series as well. And Timothy Dalton, I have to say this, he wasn't perfect, but he definitely gave a different style of Bond than the other actors who have played him so far have. He was very uncomfortable giving the puns that the other Bonds have given so far. As a matter of fact, when you see my favorite quote I picked out of this movie really lacked in the pun department. I don't know if that's because of how Dalton wanted to play the character or because they just wrote this one differently for him, or if it was just the particular plot didn't lend itself to as many puns, but there definitely were far less in this than there have been in almost every other movie, maybe every other movie so far. And Timothy Dalton looks really uncomfortable at times in this movie as far as some interactions with the ladies in this film. I won't really cover this in the plot, so I guess it's fair to say, scenes where Roger Moore or Sean Connery or even Lazenby partially would have an extended sequence where, he's wedding and bedding a lady, for lack of a better term. He's seducing them, and then we have that scene in bed where it's like the "oh James" scene that usually lingered a few seconds longer than it does here with Dalton. His scenes tended to cut away. He might get a kiss in a scene or two, and then that would kind of be the break of the scene. It would cut there and it would go to the next scene, whatever it's going to be. So they definitely downplayed the romance angle here and the sexual tension with some of the ladies compared to the earlier Bonds. But I tell you what, Dalton did well in this film, and I was not expecting this. One of the reasons I'm looking forward to the Daniel Craig James Bonds is because he is a little rougher around the edges, and because he stands up for himself maybe a little more than these earlier Bonds do. What I got here with Timothy Dalton, and again, I wasn't expecting this, was he played angry better than any Bond has so far. And he also had a counterpoint of emotional range to the Bonds we've seen so far. So if you wanted happiness or, quirky or funny or witty or I don't know, seductive, all of these were definitely played better by the earlier Bonds. But Timothy Dalton, for my money, was the best one so far at not only being angry, but also having emotions like revenge or motivation or, determination. Like he had this other side of Bond's range that we hadn't seen so far. And I really appreciated that. I think he's a little uneven at times, but man, there's times where like he is hell bent on extracting revenge in this movie. And, he will even ignore other characters in the shot with him, whether it's a lady or somebody that's an ally, because his eyes are just laser focused on who it is that he needs to go fight at that moment or kill or whatever the case is. And I really was not expecting that in this. So I thought he did a really nice job showing us a different side of Bond than we've seen so far. So I guess for that reason, if you're somebody who watches these films historically, and you enjoy this franchise, if you watch the earlier ones, the Moores and the Connerys, and then you saw this, since he lacks really hard in those other areas, I could see how you think that he did a bad job as Bond. But if you look at his performance as being complementary to those earlier roles, I really think he did a pretty good job here. And for that reason, my total Bond score here for his portrayal is going to be a 12 out of 15, which is, again, very much in line with some of the other Bond scores so far. I haven't done the math on this yet. This is a category I'm extremely interested in when all is said and done. Unless Daniel Craig just blows them out of the water. And we'll see, because I have a vision of how those are in my head, but it's been a while since I've seen any of the Daniel Craig ones, and I have never seen No Time to Die. I think I've seen Spectre, Skyfall, and Quantum of Solace once, and I think I've seen Casino Royale maybe twice. But even Casino Royale is a 17-year-old movie at this point. So, wow, that'll make you feel old real quick. Anyway, 12 out of 15 for Timothy Dalton in his initial outing as James Bond. Okay, on to the action and the plot. Our last two categories here. We got 45 big points up for grabs with this. And again, I'm going to kind of rely on Wikipedia's plot summary here for this one, as far as going back over our plot and just kind of going through the twists and the turns, especially in this one. I don't think I could do this one also justice, having watched it over several installments over, like I said, like a 1 to 2 week period here. So here's a brief version, even briefer than what they're going to have on Wikipedia. But The Living Daylights basically has this as the plot. James Bond is there to help KGB General Koskov defect, and he is supposedly there to help this guy escape from a concert hall in Bratislava, Czechoslovakia. That's a mouthful. And he finds out that the sniper the KGB has assigned to protect him is a female cellist from the orchestra that had just played. Bond is supposed to kill the sniper, but instead he merely shoots the rifle out of her hands, and he uses the Trans-Siberian pipeline, which is, for oil, but essentially they have a fake route on this, and he puts Koskov in, shoots him across the border into the west. Because you also have to remember here, we're in the late 80s. We still have the Berlin Wall at this point, so we still have like a very, NATO Warsaw Pact, East-West divide type thing going on here. In the post-mission debriefing, Koskov tells MI6 that KGB has a program called Death to Spies, which has been ordered by Pushkin, General Pushkin, who is the new head of the KGB. Koskov is later abducted from a safe house, and Bond has to go try to track Pushkin down in Tangier, which is in Africa, I believe. I want to say Algeria, but I have to double check that. And essentially, Bond is there to help make sure more MI6 agents aren't going to be killed and that there's no more escalation between the Soviet Union and the West. Bond carries out the mission when he finds out the assassin who killed 004 in Gibraltar, which is the little bit they had in the intro before the theme song in this one, left a note bearing the same message, basically, that this KGB program was there. So Bond returns back to Bratislava to find the cellist. This is where he meets Kara. There's a Kara. I forget how they pronounced it in the film now. And find out that Koskov's defection was staged. And Kara is actually Koskov's girlfriend. And Bond convinces, he lies to her, that he is a friend of Koskov's, who persuades her to come with him to Vienna to go see Koskov. They leave Bratislava, and they have both the KGB and the Czech police chasing after them. The Czech police in particular really shown to be inept while they are chasing them through the streets here. Okay, they go across the border into Austria, and we have Pushkin meeting with a arms dealer, Brad Whitaker, who's an American, I believe, and telling him that the KGB is canceling the arms deal that they had brokered between Koskov and Whitaker. So while Bond is in Vienna, he meets an MI6 ally named Saunders, who finds out that there's a history of transactions between Koskov and Whitaker, which ties the two of them together for Bond, essentially. Leaving their meeting, Saunders is killed by Nekros, who is Koskov's henchman, who again leaves the same message about the KGB, basically getting revenge on people who leave the KGB or work against them. And Bond and Kara go to Tangier at that point, I guess. I guess they were in Vienna for a second. Bond finds Pushkin, and Pushkin basically says, I have no idea what's going on, but I'm telling you that Koskov is the one who is trying to get away with embezzlement of money. And so Bond and Pushkin join forces, where we have Bond faking Pushkin's assassination. And that's one of those really rough scenes, I should add, where Timothy Dalton just like plays a badass and puts this guy in his place and straight up is like, I am going to beat you and then I am going to kill you. And that's what we see when the scene ends. But we find out afterwards that they set up a little ruse here. Okay, so Kara tells Koskov that Bond is actually a KGB agent. No, I'm sorry. Koskov tells Kara that Bond is a KGB agent and convinces her to drug him so that he can be captured. All right. Meanwhile, we have here now Koskov, Nekros, and Kara in a plane. And this is where we find out Koskov is going to betray Kara, and basically she realizes that he was wrong. She should have been helping Bond this entire time. They head to Afghanistan, another hot spot here as we're in the 80s. And Bond and Kara escape, and they also free a man named Kamran Shah, who is the local leader of the Mujahideen. Oh my gosh, Mujahideen. There we go. Like a local force, basically. And Bond and another person here this is Kara, discover that Koskov is using Soviet money to buy opium from the Mujahideen. And they're planning to keep the profits essentially so that the Soviets can get all of the weapons that they need from Whitaker. So essentially, buying drugs to sell drugs to make money, to have money, and yet at the same time buy arms to supply the Soviets. Bond manages to get the Mujahideen, that's a tough word to say, to help him and kind of turn against the operation that's going on. Bond plants a bomb on the cargo plane with all of the opium, but basically gets trapped and has to barricade himself inside. Meanwhile, we have a pretty cool chaos scene outside on the ground where we have the Soviets and pretty modern machinery taking on the Afghani forces with horses riding around horseback, which is pretty cool. Kara dives into a Jeep during this and manages to get on the plane as well as the plane takes off. Also, Necros jumps on at the last second as the Jeep driven by Koskov catches up to the plane on the runway. We have a pretty cool fight scene here with Bond and Necros where they're fighting in some cargo netting that has the opium in it as it's dragging out the back of the plane as Kara's trying to figure out how to fly the plane and also lower the gate and drop the opium and trying to get Narcos off the plane while saving Bond. A lot of tension here, a lot of good fight going on as they're dangling out of the plane as it's flying from the cargo net. So that's all a pretty fun scene. Good action there. All right, Bond reactivates the bomb and drops it out of the plane onto a bridge, which blows up and basically helps the Shah and the soldiers escape from the Soviets who are pursuing them. So saving the day with them, saving the plane as well. The plane crashes, and as it is headed down, pretty cool scene here again where Bond and Kara lower the Jeep down and essentially able to drive off in the Jeep. The drugs are all destroyed, and Bond returns back to Tangier to try to kill Whitaker. And we find out that Felix Leiter, I don't know how you say his last name, dude who shows up in a lot of the Bond movies. Letter, I think it's Letter, but it looks like it's spelled lighter, but Letter. Is there to help Bond. And we have Pushkin, who also shows back up. They arrest Koskov and they send Koskov back to Moscow, basically as a prisoner in a bag. They kind of like sandwiched him at a processing plant, if I recall, which is pretty cool. Okay, meanwhile, we have Kara going back to Vienna to do a performance as her cellist work demands again, and we have Cameron Shaw and the men who are there at the intermission, and they're listening to the performance that takes place, and they're meeting with the new head of the KGB, General Gogol. And then after the performance, Kara goes back to her dressing room, and Bond is secretly back there. So, again, apologies for lack of smoothness on that because it has been a little while since I watched parts of this movie as we go through. But in general, the plot was okay. I enjoyed a little bit of the twisty turniness they had between Pushkin and Koskov and the other guy. And you're kind of wondering who's who as the movie goes on. I enjoyed that Kara was kind of flippy floppy with a few of the parts of the movie here as well. And in general, it's just kind of fun. It was a little bit different, very time accurate again with the locations here. Headed to Afghanistan and talking about opium, and still have Russia. We still have KGB. Very timely. Nothing spectacular here. I don't know that anything in this is gonna, rewrite the book for Bond. Nor do I think it's as good as some of the other ones we've had in this series. So, for my money, this is about an 18 out of 30 for the plot. It's serviceable, but again, nothing special here. As far as the action in the movie, I highlighted a few of those scenes already when I was talking through, but I just want to say a couple scenes. I did write down some notes here. There is a boombox used in this film, which is, again, cashing in on the 80s crazes here. It's a boombox that you would hold over your shoulder, and then it shot a rocket basically out of the boombox, which is, I can't decide if that's fun or not so fun. It looks pretty cool, but is it too silly to be cool? I'm not sure, but it was a really interesting part to see in the movie. It was kind of a great visual. Whether or not it was good overall, I'm not so sure, but I'll tell you this. The car chase was super fun in this movie. If you're looking for some action through the streets and jumping over bridges and having the police chase after you, but also the Soviets are chasing after you at the same time. That was a really fun car chase and a really good example of some fun devices that we can ride on or in to make a really thrilling scene. What wasn't a good device that we could ride on or in is when James and Kara ride her cello case down a hill like a sled. That scene is the opposite of fun. It was just beyond goofy for goofy's sake. And those moments like that in this movie really stood out to me because Dalton was so kick ass in this and so serious and so angry at times. And so when you had some of the Roger Moore style comedy moments that showed up, and I think there's far less here, they really stood out in the movie, for better or worse. So overall, I'm going to give the action in this a 12 out of 15. It is, again, not the best we've seen, but certainly not the worst we've seen in these movies either. Solid, if, uneven at times. Favorite quote in this one, like I said, I didn't feel like there was a heck of a lot to work with here. So favorite quote is going to go to when Necros rather, sorry, it's a TV show. Necros is chasing after Bond in the back of the plane, and finally he gets launched out the back, and Kara basically says, like, what happened to him? And Bond says, he got the boot, which is not a great pun, but it's about the best we have in this movie. So there we go. All right, adding up our scores tonight, we have 12, 18, 6, 10, 12, 8, and 2. The grand total tonight for The Living Daylights, our first Timothy Dalton movie, 70 being the cutoff for classic versus crap, gets a grand total of 68. Just shy of classic. I have to put this one in crap category. Very close, but it's not enough to get there. So this is going to be crap for tonight. I'm intrigued, though, to see Timothy Dalton come back for the next one, License to Kill, because I didn't think he was bad. Really, the movie just wasn't stand up. And also, I mentioned a few times here, just kind of my viewing on this one was a little rough, too. Hopefully, that didn't skew my numbers too much, because I would hate for that to be the case. But I would definitely give this one, like I said, a 68 out of 70. It's just a little bit lower than you'd like to have a movie that you'd recommend to somebody. Can't quite call it classic. Got to call this one crap. But we'll see. We'll see what the next one brings. So one more T Dalt, and then we're going to head to Pierce Brosnan after that for his movies. Okay, well, this is dropping here on a Friday, which I said is a little unusual for one of these mini episodes for me. But so many good episodes we have coming up with the main cast here, our bevy of hosts that we have from time to time. We have a lot of good stuff coming up for Spooktober relatively soon, and dropping on Monday, we have another one of our indie showcases for a game that I just happened to see a little trailer for and presented that to the group. And we had several hosts that wanted to purchase that little indie game to support them and give it a shot. So we'll be bringing that to you on Monday coming up here. And then, like I said, we got a few fun Spooktober episodes planned for everybody as we get back here in the Halloween spirit for October. And we also have a couple of TV shows ending, such as Ahsoka and the Wheel of Time. And then we also have, I believe, another show starting, which would be Loki, unless that's been delayed due to all of the writers and actors stuff. I'm not positive on that. Last I saw, it was still supposed to start in October, though. So we'll definitely have to check that out. All right, everybody. I want to thank you all for your continued support. Again, check us out on your social medias. Give us a little action there. Give us a like, give us a thumbs up, give us a follow, give us a shout out, tag us in something, tell a friend about us, and definitely check out what we have for you on our normal social media feeds. All right. Till then, this has been again the Fawn Pod, the Fawncast. It's friends occasionally not disagreeing. This has been Cody with another installment of my James Bond 60th anniversary classic or crap. Take care, everyone out there. Make good decisions and stay safe. We'll see you next time.